The billionaire had not cried in 8 years. Not at the funeral, not at the empty birthday parties he still paid the caterers to prepare. Not the night he signed the papers that dissolved his marriage because grief had made two strangers of the two people who once loved the same little girl. Marcus Ellington was 54 years old, worth $2.3 billion, and he had trained himself, minute by minute, deal by deal, board meeting by board meeting, to feel absolutely nothing. And then, on a Tuesday morning in the Atlanta International Airport, at gate B14, waiting for a flight he was about to abandon, he heard a woman whisper a prayer over a small sleeping boy. "Lord, just get him there. Just get my baby there. That is all I am asking." The boy in her arms was 6 years old. His skin had that gray undertone Marcus recognized from a lifetime he had spent trying to forget. His small hand was curled around a stuffed lion with one eye missing, and around his tiny wrist, half hidden by the sleeve of a hoodie 2 sizes too big, was a hospital band. Marcus Ellington, the man Forbes had called the coldest negotiator in North America, looked at that little boy, and something inside his chest, something he had welded shut in the winter of 2018, cracked wide open. He did not know it yet, but in the next 72 hours, he was going to walk away from a $340 million acquisition. He was going to lie to his board. He was going to follow a woman he had never met across 3 states. And he was going to discover that the daughter he lost had left him one final gift. Her name was Amara. She was 7 when she died. And the boy on that airport bench had her exact same eyes. This is the story of what happens when a broken billionaire meets a mother who refuses to break. Stay until the end. You will not believe what she says to him in that hospital hallway. To the outside world, Marcus Ellington was a man who had solved life. He owned a penthouse in Buckhead, with a view of the Atlanta skyline that photographers paid thousands to shoot. He owned a Gulfstream jet, a home in Martha's Vineyard, and a driver named Cyril who had been with him for 15 years, and had learned, sometime in the last 8, never to ask how he was doing. But the outside world did not know about the small pink bracelet tucked inside the breast pocket of his suit. A cheap plastic bracelet with beads that spelled A-M-A-R-A. His daughter had made it for him one afternoon in a hospital playroom, 3 weeks before her body finally gave out. He had carried it every day since, into boardrooms, into court hearings, into 2 failed relationships that never stood a chance, because his heart was already buried in a cemetery outside of Savannah. On the morning this story begins, Marcus was flying to Cleveland to close a deal. Bennett Medical Group, a hospital network worth $340 million. His acquisitions team had spent 9 months on it. His lawyers were already in the air on a separate plane. And Marcus, who never flew commercial, had chosen commercial for one reason only. Because commercial flights forced him to sit in terminals. And in terminals, he did not have to think. He was scrolling through emails when he heard the whisper. "Please, Lord, just let him make it. Just let us make it." He looked up. She was maybe 28, 29 at most. She wore a denim jacket that had been washed 1,000 times. The kind of jacket a woman keeps not because it is nice, but because throwing it away feels like giving up. Her hair was pulled back in a bun so tight it looked painful. And in her lap, curled against her chest, was a small boy with skin the color of warm caramel. and lips that were tinged a color no child's lips should ever be. Marcus knew that color. He had spent months of his life staring at that color on his own daughter. Sickle cell crisis. The boy stirred. He opened his eyes for just a moment. Big, dark, tired eyes. And in that 1 second, before he closed them again and buried his face into his mother's shoulder, Marcus Ellington saw his daughter, Amara, looking back at him. He could not breathe. He watched the woman rock her son gently, back and forth, the way mothers have rocked sick children since the beginning of time. He watched her wipe the corner of the boy's mouth with a tissue she had folded and refolded until it was soft as cloth. He watched her check her phone and put it away. He heard her say to no one and everyone, "Just 3 more hours, baby. 3 more hours and we will be there." Marcus stood up. He did not know why. He was not a man who talked to strangers. He was not a man who inserted himself into other people's lives. He was a man who wrote checks from a distance and let his foundation attach his name to buildings he refused to visit. But he walked over to her anyway. And he said, in a voice that did not sound like his own, "Ma'am, excuse me. Is your son all right?" She looked up at him. Her eyes were the eyes of a woman who had not slept in 3 days. But there was something underneath the exhaustion. A steel. A fire. The look of a mother who had made peace with fighting the whole world alone, if that was what it took. "He is having a crisis," she said quietly. "We are going to Cleveland. There is a specialist there." Marcus felt the pink bracelet in his pocket burn against his chest. "The Amara Ellington Pediatric Hematology Center?" he asked. Her eyes widened. "Yes. How did you know?" He almost said it. The truth. That the center was named for his daughter, that he had funded every wing of it and had never once walked through its doors, because he could not bear to see other children fighting the fight his own child had lost. But he did not say it. Instead, he said, "I have heard it is the best in the country." "It is our last hope," she said simply. And with those 5 words, Marcus Ellington's entire life quietly began to change. Her name was Nia Robinson. She was 28 years old. She worked 2 jobs, a home health aide from 4 in the morning until noon, and a cashier at a grocery store from 2 until 10. Her son's name was Elijah. He was 6. He had been diagnosed with sickle cell disease at 9 months old. Marcus learned all of this in the next 20 minutes, sitting on the plastic bench beside her, not saying much, mostly listening. She did not tell him because she wanted his sympathy. She told him because he asked, and because kindness from a stranger in an airport, when you are exhausted and terrified, can feel like the first warm thing that has happened to you in weeks. When the boarding call came, she stood up slowly, adjusting Elijah in her arms. He was small for his age, too small. Marcus had seen that same too smallness in his own daughter. Sickle cell steals things from a child: growth, energy, bone density, time. "It was nice talking to you," Nia said, offering a small, polite smile. "Which seat are you in?" Marcus asked. 32B, she said. "Back of the plane." Marcus nodded. He watched her walk down the jet bridge. He watched Elijah's small head bounce softly against her shoulder. Then he turned to the gate agent and said quietly, "I need to buy out first class. All of it. Every seat. Right now." The agent blinked at him. "Sir, we cannot just—" Marcus handed her a black card. "Charge whatever you need to charge. I want that woman and her son moved to seats 1A and 1B. I do not want her to know it was me. Tell her there was a computer error and she was upgraded." The agent stared at him. Marcus was already walking toward the jet bridge. He had, in that moment, made the first small decision of a much larger unraveling. He had spent 8 years building walls, and a woman in a denim jacket holding a sick child had just, without knowing it, lifted the first brick. Marcus did not sit in first class. He sat in row 33, directly behind them, and he watched the back of Elijah's small head for the entire 2-hour flight. The boy slept most of the way. His mother did not sleep at all. Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept adjusting the blanket the flight attendant had brought her, the way her hand rested constantly on her son's forehead, checking, always checking. At one point, Elijah stirred and asked in a small, tired voice, "Mama, are we there yet?" "Almost, baby," Nia whispered. "Almost." Marcus closed his eyes. He remembered the last flight he had taken with Amara. She had been 6, too. She had asked the same question, in the same tired voice, and he had told her the same thing. "Almost, baby. Almost." They had been flying to see a specialist in Boston. 6 weeks later, she was gone. His phone buzzed. It was Cyril, his driver, texting from Cleveland. The car was ready. The hotel was ready. The lawyers were assembled at Bennett Medical Group. Everyone was waiting. Marcus stared at the phone. Then he texted back, "Cyril, change of plans. When I land, I do not want to go to Bennett. I want to go to the Ellington Center. Do not tell anyone." Cyril, who had known Marcus for 15 years, who had driven him to the funeral and driven him away from it, wrote back only one word: "Understood." When the plane landed in Cleveland, Marcus watched Nia gather her things. A worn diaper bag, a plastic grocery bag with snacks and juice boxes, Elijah's stuffed one-eyed lion. She had one small rolling suitcase that looked like it had been through 100 bus stations. She struggled to carry Elijah and the suitcase and the bags all at once. Marcus stepped forward. "May I help you with the suitcase?" he asked. She hesitated. Then she nodded, too tired to be suspicious. "Thank you." He walked with her through the jetway, through the terminal, all the way to the ground transportation area. He did not tell her he was rich. He did not tell her his name. He was just, for those 15 minutes, a stranger who was carrying her suitcase. When they reached the taxi line, she turned to him and said, "Thank you, really. You did not have to do this." Marcus looked at her. Then he looked at Elijah, whose small hand was fisted in his mother's collar. He said, "How are you getting to your hotel?" She hesitated. "There is a bus." "Where are you staying?" She named a motel. Marcus knew that motel. It was 40 minutes from the hospital, in a neighborhood he would not have sent Cyril to alone. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "there has been a mix-up with your reservation. Your motel called. They gave your room away." She stared at him. "What?" "They are trying to reach you," Marcus lied smoothly. He had never been more grateful for the years he had spent in boardrooms learning how to bluff. "The hospital's patient family services called me. I am a volunteer with them. They have arranged for you to stay at the Ridgemont. It is right across from the medical center. Complimentary. Part of a fund for out-of-state families." Nia stared at him. Her jaw tightened. "Sir," she said quietly, "we do not take charity." Marcus felt the pink bracelet in his pocket burn again. "It is not charity, ma'am," he said. "It is a fund. It was set up by the family who founded the hospital. They lost a child. They wanted no other family to worry about a hotel room. That is all." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked down at Elijah, whose small chest was rising and falling too quickly. She swallowed hard. She nodded once. "Thank you," she said. Cyril was waiting at the curb, a black Escalade with tinted windows. Nia's eyes widened. "This is just the transportation service the hospital uses," Marcus said. "Please, get in. It is warm inside." She got in. She held Elijah against her chest, and Marcus, standing on the curb, watched Cyril drive her away. Then Marcus called his assistant Rebecca, who had been with him for 12 years, who was one of only 3 people alive who still knew his daughter's middle name. "Rebecca," he said, "I am not going to the Bennett meeting today, or tomorrow, or the day after that. Cancel it, reschedule it. If they threaten to walk, let them walk." There was a long pause. "Marcus," Rebecca said carefully, "that is $340 million. That is 9 months of work. That is—" "Rebecca," Marcus said, and his voice was quiet, but it was the voice he had not used in 8 years. The voice from before. The voice of the man he used to be. "There is a little boy. He is 6 years old. He has sickle cell. He is Amara's age. And his mother is doing this alone. Reschedule the meeting." Rebecca did not speak for a long time. Then she said, softly, "Yes, sir." Marcus hung up. He stood on the Cleveland curb in a $2,000 coat, and for the first time in 8 years, he did not feel cold. The Amara Ellington Pediatric Hematology Center was 6 stories tall. Marcus had funded it with $78 million of his own money, and another $40 million he had raised from friends who owed him favors. He had approved every architectural drawing. He had chosen the color of the walls, a soft green because green had been Amara's favorite. He had personally overseen the commissioning of a mural in the main lobby, a painting of a little girl in a yellow dress chasing butterflies through a field. He had never seen any of it in person. Not once. In 4 years. He stood across the street now, in a coffee shop, watching the front doors. And every time he tried to walk toward them, his feet stopped. He was on his 3rd cup of coffee when he saw Cyril pull up. Nia got out with Elijah. She looked up at the building. And Marcus, from across the street, saw her whisper something he could not hear. But he knew, from the way her lips moved, that it was a prayer. She carried her son inside. Marcus put down his coffee. He crossed the street. He pushed through the revolving doors. He walked into the lobby of the building bearing his daughter's name. The mural was the first thing he saw, the little girl in the yellow dress. He had approved the sketch 4 years ago in a conference room in New York. He had not been prepared for what it looked like on a 15-foot wall, painted in oils, sunlight streaming through the atrium windows onto her painted face. He stood there, and he could not move. A woman in a soft cardigan approached him. She wore a name tag that read, Dr. Patricia Wren, Chief of Hematology. She was in her 60s. She had kind eyes. "Sir," she said gently, "are you all right?" Marcus turned to her. He opened his mouth. No words came. Dr. Wren studied his face. Then she studied the pink bracelet he was, without realizing it, holding in his hand. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Ellington," she said quietly. He nodded. She had not seen him in person in 4 years, but she had recognized him instantly. She had, after all, been the doctor who had cared for Amara during her final months. She had held his hand in a hospital hallway, not so different from this one, the morning his daughter had died. Dr. Wren, Marcus said. His voice broke. I need your help. They walked to her office. He told her everything. About the airport, about Nia, about Elijah, about the pink bracelet and the mural and the 8 years of hiding. She listened. She did not interrupt. When he was done, she said, Elijah Robinson, 6 years old, from Atlanta. Yes, he is on my patient list for this afternoon. His case is severe, Marcus. He should have been brought in a year ago. His mother has been fighting insurance denials for 11 months. Marcus felt something hot behind his eyes. How much does she owe? He asked. $43,000 in outstanding bills. Her insurance covers almost nothing. She has been paying the co-pays out of pocket at a rate of $200 a month. She has never missed a payment. What does he need? Dr. Wren took a breath. Marcus, he needs a bone marrow transplant. He is a candidate, but the search for a donor is expensive. The procedure is expensive. The aftercare is expensive. And his mother works 2 jobs and cannot afford to stop working. Even with our foundation grants, she is looking at a personal cost of somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000 over the next 2 years. Marcus was already reaching for his phone. Dr. Wren, he said, whatever it costs, every cent. From the day he was diagnosed until the day he is cured. Bills, medications, transportation, his mother's lost wages, housing, food, every single expense. It comes to me, personally, not the foundation, me. Dr. Wren was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, she said gently, do you want her to know it is you? Marcus stared out the window. He thought about the woman in the denim jacket, the steel in her eyes, the way she had said, we do not take charity. No, he said. She will not accept it if she knows. She has pride, and her pride is one of the most beautiful things about her. It is the thing that has kept that little boy alive. It has to stay anonymous. There is a way, Dr. Wren said. We can route it through the Family Assistance Fund. She will be told she qualified for a special sponsorship program. Do it, Marcus said. Today. Dr. Wren nodded. She stood up. She paused at the door. Marcus, she said, do you want to see him? He did not answer for a long time. Then he said, yes, I want to see him, but I do not want him to see me. Not yet. She led him to an observation window that looked into an examination room. Elijah was on the table. Nia was sitting beside him, holding his hand. The boy was crying quietly. Nia was singing to him. Something soft, something Marcus could not quite hear, but he could read her lips. She was singing, You Are My Sunshine. The same song. The same exact song Amara used to ask him to sing to her every night, before the sickness got so bad that she was too tired to ask for songs. Marcus put his hand against the glass. His fingers left a mark. And for the first time in 8 years, his eyes filled with tears. He did not cry. Not yet. But the tears were there, waiting. That evening, Marcus sat alone at a corner table in the restaurant of the Ridgemont Hotel, watching the front entrance. He had a bottle of water in front of him. He had not eaten since the airport. He was not hungry. He was waiting. At 8:30, Nia walked into the lobby. Elijah was asleep on her shoulder, wrapped in the hospital's discharge blanket. She looked exhausted, in a way that made her look older than her 28 years. She looked like a woman who had just been told by a doctor she trusted that her son needed a bone marrow transplant and that she should not worry about the money because a foundation was going to cover everything. She looked like a woman who did not know whether to believe it. Marcus watched her cross the lobby. He watched her nod at the front desk clerk. He watched her disappear into the elevator. 20 minutes later, his phone buzzed. It was Rebecca. "Marcus, Bennett Medical is threatening to walk from the deal. They want an in-person meeting tomorrow morning or they are done." Marcus stared at his water glass. He thought about $340 million, about 9 months of work, about the 22 people on his acquisitions team. Then he thought about Nia's face when she had said, "We do not take charity." "Rebecca," he said, "tell them I am not coming." "Marcus." "Tell them I am unavailable due to a personal matter. If they walk, they walk. I will find another hospital network to buy next year." There was a long silence. Then Rebecca said softly, in the way she had spoken to him only once before, on the day of the funeral, "Marcus, are you okay?" Marcus thought about it, really thought about it. "No," he said, "but I think I might be, one day. For the first time in a long time, I think I might be." He hung up. The next morning, he sent a bellhop up to Nia's room with a breakfast tray. Fresh fruit, warm oatmeal, orange juice, chocolate milk for Elijah. A small note. It said only, "Compliments of the hotel, the family wellness program." He was in the lobby, hidden behind a newspaper, when she came down. She stopped at the front desk. She said to the clerk, "There must be some mistake. I did not order breakfast, and I cannot afford—" The clerk, who had been paid $500 in cash to say exactly this, smiled and said, "Ma'am, it is complimentary. All families staying under the Ellington Family Fund receive full board. Please, enjoy." Nia's eyes filled with tears. She said, "Thank you." She said it in a whisper. She said it to the clerk. She said it to God. She said it to nobody. Marcus watched her from behind the newspaper. For the first time in 8 years, he felt useful. Marcus went to the hospital every day for the next 4 days. He did not visit Nia. He did not speak to Elijah. He sat in Dr. Wren's office. He signed papers. He wrote checks. He wired money. He talked to lawyers about setting up a permanent trust for Elijah's future medical care. But he could not stay away from the observation window. On the 3rd day, Elijah was moved to a private room while they waited on donor match results. Dr. Wren, who had figured Marcus out completely by now, arranged for the room to be next to a small playroom with a 2-way mirror. "You can watch him play," she said gently, "if you want." He wanted. He sat in a small chair on the other side of the mirror. He watched Elijah build a tower out of colored blocks. He watched him knock it down. He watched him build it again. He watched him giggle when a child life specialist came in and pretended to be a monster who was going to steal his blocks. He watched Elijah laugh. And the laugh sounded exactly like Amara's laugh. He put his head in his hands. On the 4th day, something happened that Marcus was not prepared for. He was in the observation room. Elijah was playing with a puzzle. Nia had stepped out to take a phone call in the hallway. The door of the playroom opened. A child life specialist looked in. Then she said, in a voice too casual to be accidental, "Elijah, sweetheart, There is a nice man in the observation room who has been coming to say hello every day. Would you like to meet him? He is a friend of Dr. Wren." Marcus froze. Dr. Wren had not warned him. He looked up. Through the two-way mirror, he saw the specialist smiling at him, with her back to Elijah. And he understood. The door opened. Elijah walked in, small, careful, holding his one-eyed lion. He looked up at Marcus. Marcus, who had negotiated hostile takeovers, who had faced down senators, who had once made a Russian oligarch cry in a boardroom in Zurich, could not think of a single word to say. Elijah tilted his head. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he said, in a small voice, "You look sad, mister." Marcus swallowed. "I am a little sad, buddy," he said. "Why?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I miss somebody. A long time ago I had a little girl, and she got sick, and she went away, and I miss her every single day." Elijah nodded slowly, the way 6-year-olds nod when they are trying to understand something that is much bigger than they are. "Was she nice?" he asked. "She was the nicest," Marcus said. His voice was breaking. "She was so nice, just like you." Elijah walked closer. He held out the one-eyed lion. "You can hold him if you want," he said. "He helps when you are sad." Marcus took the lion. He held it carefully, as if it were made of glass. His hands were shaking. "Thank you," he whispered. "What was her name?" Elijah asked. Marcus opened his mouth. He almost said, "Amara." But the truth of it, in that moment, was more than he could carry. He said instead, "Her name was Sunshine. That is what I called her." Elijah smiled. "That is a good name," he said. Then, without any warning, he climbed up onto Marcus's lap. Marcus did not move. He did not breathe. He was afraid that if he moved, this small, warm boy would vanish, and 8 years of grief would swallow him whole again. But Elijah did not vanish. Elijah leaned his head against Marcus's chest, and Marcus, very slowly, very carefully, wrapped one arm around him. That was when the door opened. Nia was standing in the doorway. She had a coffee in her hand. Her mouth was slightly open. She was looking at her son on the lap of a strange man she had met 3 times in a room she had not expected to find him in. She did not move for several seconds. Then, "Elijah, baby, come here." Elijah looked up. "Mama, this is my new friend. He is sad because he had a little girl and she went away." Nia's eyes met Marcus's over the top of her son's head. And in that moment, sitting in a bright playroom with a stuffed lion in his hands and a small boy on his lap, Marcus Ellington understood that the woman across the room had just realized something he had not wanted her to realize yet. She did not say a word. She simply held out her hand. Elijah slid off Marcus's lap and walked to his mother. She lifted him up. She looked at Marcus. She said quietly, "Would you come outside for a moment, please? I would like to speak with you." They stood in the hallway. Elijah had gone back to the playroom under the watch of the child life specialist. Nia did not speak for a long time. Then she said, "You are him, aren't you?" Marcus did not pretend not to understand. "Yes," he said. "Ellington. The name on the building. It is you." "Yes." "Your daughter, Sunshine. That was Amara Ellington." "Yes." Nia closed her eyes. She pressed her hand against the wall. She was very still. "The upgraded plane seats," she said. "The hotel. The breakfast. The special fund. The sponsorship program. It is all you, isn't it?" Marcus swallowed. "Yes." She opened her eyes. There were tears in them, but they were not the kind of tears he had expected. They were angry tears. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was very quiet. "Why did you not tell me?" Marcus took a breath. "Because I did not think you would accept it if I did. That was not your decision to make." "I know," Marcus said. "I know. I am sorry." She turned away from him. She stared out the window at the parking lot. Her jaw was clenched. Her hands were shaking. "Do you know how it feels?" she said, and her voice broke. "To spend 11 months fighting insurance companies? To beg? To fill out forms until your hands cramp? To sell your grandmother's ring? To ask your church for help? To stand in food banks with your 6-year-old son? And then to show up at a hospital and be told, 'Oh, do not worry, a foundation is going to pay for everything.'" Marcus did not answer. "Do you know how small that made me feel?" she asked. "It should have made me feel grateful. And part of me is, God, part of me is. But another part of me feels like I did not earn it. Like somebody just decided I was pathetic enough to help." Marcus felt like he had been slapped. "That is not," he started. "I know what it is not," she said, turning to him. "But that is how it feels." They stood there in the hallway, two strangers, a billionaire and a mother. The distance between them was 5 feet and 8 centuries. Then Nia took a breath. "I am not going to say no to the help," she said. "For my son, I would take help from the devil himself. So I am not going to say no." Marcus nodded. "But," she said, "I want to understand. I want to know why. Because right now, all I can think is that a rich man saw a poor black woman with a sick child, and he decided to make himself feel better by playing hero." Marcus flinched. He was quiet for a long time. He was trying to find the words. He was trying to be honest. Then he reached into his pocket. He pulled out the pink bracelet. AMARA. He held it out. "She made this for me," he said. 3 weeks before she died. She was 7 years old. Same eyes as Elijah. Same laugh. She had sickle cell too. I spent every dollar I had trying to save her. Every dollar. And it did not matter. She died anyway. And after that, I did not feel anything for 8 years. I built a hospital, and I could not walk into it. I built foundations, and I did not visit them. I sent checks to strangers, and I did not look at their faces." His voice was cracking. "And then I heard you praying," he said, "in the airport, over your son. And I looked at him, and it was like Amara had come back to tell me something. It was like she had walked into that terminal and said, 'Daddy, wake up.'" Nia's hand went to her mouth. "I am not playing hero, Ms. Robinson," he said. "I am drowning. I have been drowning for 8 years. And your son is the first thing I have seen in a very long time that has made me want to breathe again." Nia did not speak. Marcus said, "I did not tell you who I was because I was ashamed. Not of the money. Of the fact that I have had it for 8 years, and I have not spent it well. I have not spent it on people. I have spent it on hiding. And when I saw you and Elijah, I wanted to help. Not for me, for him. Because Amara cannot be helped anymore. But he can. There was a long silence. Then Nia said softly, "Put the bracelet in my hand." Marcus placed it in her palm. She looked at it. She turned it over. She traced the letters with her thumb. Then she said, "You are going to give this to Elijah tonight, and you are going to tell him about her. Not the version where she went away, the real version. Because if you were going to be in our lives, Mr. Ellington, you were going to be honest. You were going to be a real person, not a bank account with a name." Marcus nodded. He could barely see through the water in his eyes. "Yes, ma'am," he whispered. She handed the bracelet back to him. "And one more thing," she said. Her voice was steady now. "If you are going to help us, then you are going to sit with us. In the waiting rooms. In the exam rooms. In the hallways when the news is bad. You do not get to write a check and disappear. That is not friendship. That is a transaction." "Okay," he said. "Say it." "I will sit with you," he said. "In all of it." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay." And she walked back into the playroom to be with her son. Marcus stood in the hallway alone. And finally, for the first time in 8 years, he cried. The donor match came 6 weeks later. A 23-year-old college student in Minneapolis. A perfect match. 10 out of 10. The transplant was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in March. Marcus had, in those 6 weeks, done things he had not done in 8 years. He had gone to church with Nia and Elijah on Sundays. He had eaten dinner in Nia's small apartment in South Atlanta at her kitchen table with her mother, Deborah, who had looked at him for a long moment when they met and then said, "You look like a man who has been alone a long time. Sit down. I made cornbread." He had learned that Elijah loved dinosaurs, that his favorite one was the Triceratops, that his father had left when he was 2 and had not been heard from since, that Nia had a sister in Detroit who called every Sunday, that her father had died of a stroke when she was 19, that she had wanted to be a nurse before Elijah was born and the money ran out. He learned, too, that she laughed with her whole face, that she had a scar on her left hand from a kitchen accident when she was 12, that she cried at cereal commercials, but not at hospital bills, that she was, in every way that mattered, one of the strongest human beings he had ever met. He fell in love with her. He did not tell her. Not then. It was not the time. Elijah was not well yet. Nothing else mattered. On the morning of the transplant, Marcus sat with Nia in the family waiting room. Deborah was there too. They held hands, the 3 of them, in a small circle of plastic chairs. The surgery took 11 hours. At hour 7, Dr. Wren came out and said the marrow had been successfully infused. At hour 9, she came out again and said Elijah's vitals were stable. At hour 11, she came out and sat down next to Nia and said, "He is asleep. He is doing well. The next 100 days will tell us everything. But so far, so good." Nia collapsed into Marcus's shoulder. He wrapped his arms around her. He did not say anything. He just held her, in a waiting room in a hospital named for his daughter, while another mother wept over another child who might, this time, be saved. Elijah spent the next 4 months in the hospital. Marcus visited every day, every single day. He read to Elijah. He brought him puzzles. He brought him a stuffed Triceratops that he named Sir Reginald. He learned all the nurses' names. He tipped the janitors. He funded a new wing of the hospital dedicated to family accommodations, so that no other mother would ever have to sleep on a plastic chair. Nia's job called. Both jobs, actually. Marcus paid for them to hire a temporary replacement so that Nia could be at the hospital full-time. He set up a trust so that she would never have to work 2 jobs again. He did not tell her about that one until later, when Elijah came home. On the day Elijah came home, Marcus drove them himself. Not Cyril, Marcus. In a rented minivan, because Nia had said, laughing, "I am not putting my son in an Escalade like he is some kind of drug dealer's kid." They pulled up to her apartment building in South Atlanta. Nia looked up at it. She sighed the way people do when they come home after being away for a long time. Marcus said, "Nia, I need to tell you something." She looked at him. "I bought the building," he said quietly. 2 months ago. The landlord was going to raise the rents. I bought it. Your rent is frozen. All the other tenants' rents are frozen too, for as long as I am alive. And after that, my foundation will keep them frozen. I did not want to tell you until Elijah was home, but you should know." Nia stared at him. She did not say anything for a long time. Then she said, "Marcus, you have to stop." He blinked. "Stop what?" "Stop trying to buy your way into our lives. Stop trying to fix everything. You do not have to do all of this. You are already in our lives. You have been in our lives since the airport. You do not have to keep proving it." Marcus was quiet. Then he said, "I am not trying to buy my way in. I am trying to make sure that when I am gone, you and Elijah are safe. That is all. If you tell me to stop, I will stop. But please, let me do this." Nia looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, softly, "Okay, but no more secret gifts, no more foundations, no more sponsorship programs. If you want to do something, you come to me. You ask me, like a person, like family." Marcus nodded. "Like family," he repeated. They walked upstairs. Elijah was tired from the drive, but happy to be home. He ran to his little bedroom and hugged his bed. He hugged his blankets. He hugged his stuffed dinosaurs. He was 6, and he had just spent a third of a year in a hospital, and he was, at last, home. Nia stood in her small living room. She looked around. She looked at her couch, the one she had bought at a thrift store for $80. She looked at her framed photo of her father. She looked at the wall where Elijah had drawn on it in crayon when he was 3, and she had never had the heart to paint over it. She looked at Marcus. She said, "Would you stay for dinner?" He said, "Yes." She made spaghetti. Elijah fell asleep on the couch with Sir Reginald tucked under his arm. Marcus and Nia sat at her kitchen table and talked for 4 hours. About her father, about Amara, about the future, about nothing. At the end of the night, at the door, she looked at him and said, "You are a good man, Marcus Ellington." He shook his head. "I am trying to be." "That is what a good man says," she replied. He walked to his car. He got in. He sat in the driver's seat for a full 10 minutes before he could start the engine. Not because he was sad, but because he was, for the first time in 8 years, not sad. And it was such an unfamiliar feeling that he did not know what to do with it. 1 year later, Elijah was cancer-free and cell crisis-free. His new marrow was strong. Dr. Wren said he had a full life ahead of him, a normal life. He was going to start 2nd grade in the fall. On a Saturday in April, Marcus took Naya and Elijah to a small park outside of Savannah. He had never brought anyone here before, not in 8 years. At the far end of the park, under a large oak tree, was a small headstone. Amara Grace Ellington, beloved daughter. 2011 to 2018. Our sunshine. Marcus knelt down. Elijah knelt beside him. Nia stood behind them, her hand on Marcus's shoulder. Elijah looked at the headstone. He was old enough now to understand. He said, "Was she your sunshine, Mr. Marcus?" "Yes, buddy." "Do you think she would have liked me?" Marcus felt the pink bracelet in his pocket. He pulled it out. He put it in Elijah's small hand. "Buddy," he said, and his voice was strong now, steady. "I think she would have loved you. I think she would have wanted us to find each other." Elijah looked at the bracelet. He turned it over. He read the letters. Then he said, very quietly, "I love you, Mr. Marcus." Marcus closed his eyes. He said, "I love you too, Elijah." Behind them, Nia was crying silently. But she was smiling too. Because sometimes the universe takes something from you, and you spend 8 years hating it for what it took. And then one day, in an airport, at a random gate, you hear a mother whisper a prayer over her sleeping child, and you understand. You understand that the daughter you lost was not the end. She was the door. And on the other side of the door was a woman named Nia, and a little boy named Elijah, and a life you never knew was waiting for you. Marcus Ellington had not cried in 8 years. Now he cried freely, and he laughed freely, and he lived freely. And every night, before bed, he would call a small boy in South Atlanta, and he would sing him, "You Are My Sunshine," just like he used to, just like he always should have.